when you are a buyer out there looking, you cannot treat your buying process like fantasy football. It has to be the March Madness format. John, here's what I mean. If I go out and show you 4 houses, and then we finish up at the end, and you're using your fantasy football strategy, you are going to say to me, gosh, Lance, thank you. Today was great. But I really liked the kitchen from house number 1. So I'm going to take that. And I really liked the backyard from house number 2. And I'm going to take that. And house number 3 had a 3-bay garage and everything else had 2 bays. So I really like that. And I'm going to look at you and say, you're not helpful at all. Okay. like we cannot use fantasy house shopping. I mean, it's fantasy for a reason, but I will tell you, there are a lot of buyers that make that mistake early on where they go out and they look at 10 houses, and then they're like, that process that I just explained, that's exactly what they do. I like this from this one, this from that one, that from that. And they're never looking at the overall picture of that home. Meaning like, if we're looking for a resale property, there is a process that we have to look at. And the reason why I call it the March Madness theory of when we're home searching is now, if we're going to go look at 4 homes, and I show you that first home, John, you're like, there's a lot of things I like about that house.
Okay.
There's some things I don't, but there's a lot. And then I go show you the second home. What's likely very, very more productive for you as a buyer in this scenario is I go to you and I say, John, guess now, between home number 1 and home number 2, we're in a bracket challenge.
Okay.
Somebody has to win.
Okay.
Which one did you like better, 1 or 2?
Oh, and you force them to kind of
mentally make a, so now you're deciding, okay, this is reality. This is not now fantasy football. This is the reality of what we have available. And when we go head to head, you'll then look at that and you'll start to determine what your most important criteria is. And so that will help from you as a buyer from getting very, very confused. If you're constantly just picking out the best factors from each home, you're going to create this fantasy home in your mind that does not exist. And you'll be like, oh man, I gotta find the 3-car garage with the kitchen. Now, I can tell you that the time to play fantasy football is when you're building a custom home. Because then you get to pick all those factors. Now, the problem is you're not going to like the price. But when you get to a certain level or say, I've saved all my life and now I want to do a custom construction, now we can play the fantasy game when we go to build because we can get exactly the kitchen you want. We can get the number of garages you want. But when you are looking at resale homes available to purchase now, it is very, very helpful for a buyer if they play the bracket game. So then you tell me, we're looking at 4 houses and you say, gosh, you know what? I did like, if I had to pick between those 2, I would pick the first one. So then we go look at the third one, and now we're on to our next round. We go and look at the third one and we finish and you're like, oh, there's a couple things I like. And you're like, but it's still, if you were forcing me to pick, Lance, I would still pick the first one.
Okay.
So now, we've eliminated those now as factors. We go look at the fourth one. You walk in, and you're like, this is absolutely the showstopper.
Okay.
No way. Like, I don't even care about that first home anymore.
This is the one.
It's much easier for you to keep track in your mind of like, wow, this one's so much better than the first one. Where if we had not eliminated those other choices, once you get past 4 or 5 homes, your brain gets really, really
foggy.
Confused in that situation. And so I always tell people that, use the March Madness, use the bracket theory when you're looking at homes. Make them go head to head to eliminate one of those choices. The other thing that happens that I think is important for people to realize in tournament speak is most real estate agents are human, and we naturally like seed houses. And I tell you, if we use bracket seeding, if I send you 5 houses, you will come back to me or we'll meet up. You'll come to the office and be like, okay, let's go look. And you'll be like, Lance, I am so excited about this one. This is my number 1 seed. And you'll be like, this is the one that we need to go to first. I'm really excited about it.
Yes.
The thing you have to be careful about, though, is having an open mind for other factors.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've had that list where a client has said, I'm certain this is going to be the one I love. And we go and look at it, and there's just some factor that they could not have imagined. It's across the street from a school, and they don't like the traffic, or the orientation of the backyard lets sun in at certain times of the day they don't want sun in. And so, and then there's been other times where I'm the exact same way for a client. I'll send them a list of 5, and I always do this, and I'll always be like, yeah, we're gonna go look at these 5, but I know this is the one that they're gonna like. Now, the worst thing you can do as an agent, you learn over the course of your career, don't ever tell somebody that, because you're probably wrong. So there's no reason to even plant that seed, and you're also not the one making the decision. But there will be a set of conditions that emerge that can change that. It could be negotiations. It could be a change in lending. There's so many things that can happen that I always say in real estate, don't be surprised by an upset.
Yes.
There will be another factor. And that's why I always tell people, even if people want to only go look at one house, they're like, no, I've been looking and seeing, and I really just want to go look at this one house. I'll always encourage them. I'm like, hey, if we're going to go out, it doesn't take that much longer for us to look at 2 as it does 1. We're already here. We're already together. Let's go look at the one that you want to see, and then let's go look at 2 more. Because there's probably something that is going to happen that you just don't realize and you can't see on Zillow or even our website or anybody.
Exactly.
There's a big difference for going out, and they say in the sports, there's a reason why we play the game. If it was just seeding, we wouldn't have this tournament. Like, there's a reason why we go out and we look at these houses in person, because it can make a big difference.
Okay.
And so last week on the Kelsey Brothers podcast, if anybody has not listened to them, I will occasionally listen to some of their shows, and they are highly entertaining. And they had, on top of them being entertaining, they had Jason Sudeikis on their show, who, for those of you that don't know, plays Ted Lasso in Ted Lasso. And so I greatly enjoyed that series. But one of the things that got me thinking about that with the connection to March Madness is in that show, when he comes and comes to his office, he puts up on his office wall a John Wooden graphic, which John Wooden was the coach of UCLA. 10 national championships. And actually that happened in a span of 12 years. Can you imagine somebody winning 10 national champions in a span of 12 years? I mean, people didn't like the Chiefs winning 3.
Yeah.
Well,
he had guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Walton.
Just a little bit. Well, he has a pyramid of success. And it's pretty cool, because I think whether you're buying or selling real estate, the foundation of what he puts on that pyramid of success, and John Wooden was very big into the fundamentals. Like, he's famous for when he would open up his seasons and his practices with the freshmen. He was famous for holding a basketball out and saying to the players, "This is a basketball." And they would all just stare at him.
Yeah,
and here's these high-level players that he's recruited and have come, and he's like, "This is basketball." And he was making a statement that was a reminder of, whatever you've done in the past or are going to do in the future, we're here. We're going to work on fundamentals.
Yeah.
And that was a big foundation. And so I just wanted to go over in real estate what he put at the base of that foundational pyramid. And his number one that he had in there on the bottom left corner was industriousness. And one of the things he preached is hard work. What he meant by that was hard work, very hard work. And he's written some amazing books. And if you haven't read his books, they're awesome. I've read a number of them. And it was kind of fun because in real estate, I think you have to have that hard work and that industriousness. Mm-hmm. And it was cool. I had a unique experience this week. I got to go back to a house that had closed a week earlier. Mm-hmm. It was not my buyer, it was my seller, but there were some maintenance items that we had to go back for. And so I went back to the house and I had seen it when my seller was staged it to sell, but then I hadn't seen it after we sold it. I did not see it after they packed everything up. So the last time I saw this house, it was just a lived-in house, and a very, very young couple bought it, and they have a new baby. And I went back to the house and I opened it up, and it was awesome. There was paper on all of the floors. Uh-huh. There were painting the entire house themselves. Ooh. And they had not hired it out, They were, first time home buyers and probably had spent a lot of money on the down payment and their closing costs. And I thought to myself, like, painting an entire home on the interior and taping off all of the trim and covering all of the floors. That is a lot of hard work, and they're doing this on nights and weekends amongst their other job. And I was like, okay, this couple's going to make it. They have industriousness, and so, that was just a great real estate example of if you want to build some sweat equity and you want to get a deal, and we talk about housing affordability all the time. There are deals in this market that if you're willing to put some of that sweat equity and work into, mm-hmm. you can get into a house and build some of that equity. It's really, really interesting because the very next item that comes on the foundation of this pyramid of success couldn't be further from industriousness. Well, maybe it could be, but it's friendship. Like, I don't think of that being the next basis of that pyramid. But I think about, and John describes it in his book as respect and camaraderie. And I think about that, and I look in the real estate industry, a lot of times we have an agent on the other side of the transaction. Yes. And they work for another company. A lot of the times they don't work for our company. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have respect or camaraderie for that agent and what they're doing and a certain level of friendship in the industry for what's happening, man, our jobs get a lot harder. Yes. And so I was like, that applies just as much to basketball as it does to real estate. Because sometimes too, there's going to be something that happens in that transaction, and you need a cooperative person on the other side to get things done and to get the outcome that all parties want. So I thought that was huge. The next item that he puts in the pyramid of success is loyalty. And, it's interesting because not only can there be loyalty from clients and loyalty from agents, but loyalty is actually described in our laws of agency on duties that we have as agents that we have to our clients. So it's also a prescription of the law that we have to follow. So loyalty to our clients when we're working for them, that comes into play every single day. I touched on this briefly, but he has it separated outside of friendship. He has cooperation, and it takes a village of people to get these things done. We already talked about the agent on the other side, but there's a title company. There's a home inspector. Generally, a home inspector has to get let in by a seller. Yes. That seller has to cooperate with the times frames that we set up that home inspection for, which generally then we're working around the buyer's schedule. Like, if we do not have cooperation, the transaction, the likelihood of it closing is slim to none. Like, you have to have so much cooperation within that transaction that is just a massive one, not only in sports, but also in real estate. And then the last one that he has down on the basis of that pyramid, and I can't say this enough, it's enthusiasm. And I will tell you, it was funny because enthusiasm in the real estate business can be such a determination of success that people are going to have. I was invited to speak on a panel earlier in the week at Leadership Tri-Cities for this event. There's a great organization, Leadership Tri-Cities, that trains the next level of leaders. And they have things. And so we were speaking on a panel. And it was funny because the moderator sent out notes before, and he said, hey, our focus on that day is we have a focus on, there were two focuses, and he goes, the first focus was on letting people level up with leadership. And I said, okay, that's awesome. And he goes, and our second focus is on energy. And so, like, I'm preparing my notes and everything, and I'm getting ready for the panel. And so I'm writing myself some notes and stuff. And I was like, oh, gosh, yeah, these are great topics. This is fantastic. And then I go, I should look at, like, who the other attendees are in the leadership class so I kind of know who I'm speaking to. Well, I started to see that there was, like, some Hanford contractors and then subcontractors at Hanford, and some supporting government things, and some stuff about solar, and some stuff about BPA and electric. And a light bulb literally went off in my head, and I said, oh, he doesn't mean Lance's energy. He means like actual energy that powers our house. And so, but isn't that funny how, like, in business, my initial thought was for the panel I was on, like, energy is super important, the energy you bring every day to the job and what you're doing. And, you know, I thought about the March Madness tournament, and yeah, you can tell when a team has a different level of energy. You can almost, sometimes in that first quarter, you're like, oh, I know how this game's going to go and what that's going to look like. So yeah, I totally had the wrong energy down. Luckily, I clarified with him before the panel, so I got it. And he was kind of funny about it. The moderator said, God, I never thought about that when I sent it out. He goes, you're right. It totally could have been taken the other way. So that was a great experience, but with enthusiasm, when I saw that at the bottom of this pyramid, for a coach that had 10 national championship teams, like, enthusiasm is a huge, huge part with that at all. And then the last thing I wrote down is the final shot, the buzzer beater.
Okay.
This could not be more applicable in real estate. I mean, if there was not a buzzer beater, then I probably would have less of a job or less transaction. I can't tell you how many times 2 days from closing, we're like, hey, we need one more document before the lender will issue loan docs. And you are basically, you feel like you're just waiting for somebody on the outside to throw up a 3, and we don't know if it's going to go through, or some credit report needed to be changed and needed to go up by a couple of points. So there's all kinds of buzzer beaters that have to happen in real estate, and so I think about that a lot when I'm comparing that to March Madness. So it was a lot of fun. I probably have like 20 more, like, really, literally, we only got through the base of the pyramid with this. So I'll definitely have to, like, put the graphic up and just be like, here's what it is. But yeah, man, shout out to everybody that has brackets. I hope that your bracket is not already busted. Enjoy the games and enjoy the tournament. And if you have any questions on the real estate side of things, go to kenmoreteam.com and shoot us a message.
And we will be right back here next week. Swish.